All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Carver Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 24th, 2024. Excuse me. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. All right, getting right to our agenda. We have a number of things under discussion. The first up on our agenda is the discussion of the Griffith Forest Conservation Restriction from the Buzzard Bay Coalition. Mr. Allen?
All right. Don't mind just signing in. Of course not. All right, now that that's done, good evening, everybody. Alan Decker with Buzzards Bay Coalition. Really happy to be with you this evening, as this meeting has been a long time in coming. As you know, this is the Griffith Forest property. I know that there was a commission site visit this morning, but if you don't have them in front of you, I've got a set of maps that I'm happy to have the conservation agent share with you.
They've been handed out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So, what we're talking about this evening is a portion of the property inside the red on that first map. This is the former Griffith property that the coalition acquired back in July of 2021. You'll see two components, most of which is already green inside. So the focus of tonight's discussion and the conservation restriction that has been proposed is to protect the uncolored sections of the component there on the east side of Main Street. That is just under two parts of that property. It's just under 4 acres in total. So when we acquired the property from the private landowner, we did so using some some Community Preservation Act funding. And as a result of the use of those funds, the protection needed to happen in full. So the conservation restriction that's been shared with you and has been finalized with, you've seen it before, albeit a long time ago, but has finally been approved and ready to move forward from the state review process, would finish off the protection of the component on the east side of Main Street. Thereby, you would hold the conservation restriction over that 4 acres over the coalition's ownership. Now, for the public at large and for commission members who might not have been able to make it this morning, our intentions out there are what we do with all of our other publicly accessible owned reserves throughout the watershed. This is going to be publicly accessible. In fact, it is now. We don't intend any other use for the property beyond essentially what it's being put to today. That is, we have developed some trail network. There were existing trails on the property. The middle of the property, as you can see, is actually protected by a conservation restriction held by Wildlands Trust. So the two of you, meaning Wildlands Trust and the Conservation Commission, are in full protecting that property. The trails just enable exploration of the property, and the only other kind of interesting, or well, it's not that it's not interesting, but should we want to, we are reserving the ability to do commercial forestry. I doubt that happens, but if it does, we have to have a forest management plan created by a licensed forester that you get a chance to see and approve and all of that. But that's just, that's one of the reserved rights for use of the property. Other than that, it's going to be open, and we hope the public will come and enjoy it. To help with that enjoyment, as you may already know, the portion of the property that's over on Lakeview Street is actually acting as a parking area for folks who are using the boat landing across the street to access Sampson Pond. That use will continue. We're very happy. The former owner allowed that to happen. We're happy to allow that to continue to happen. We know the boat landing is a popular recreational access point. So it is currently being used, and it's our intention that that would continue to be used. At a point in the future, we have reserved the ability to create a small parking lot on the Main Street frontage. So we don't have that in place now. We don't have the funds to make that happen, but we do, like we do with our other properties, we look for funding to be able to make that happen, and we will make a strong effort to make that happen. It's just a reserved right, and obviously we will come before you for any regulatory needs with that creation of that parking area. We'd also be with you as the CR holder. So the other maps give you some of the idea of the benefits for protecting this property. It is sitting right square over a high yield aquifer, so this could have been, the unprotected area could have been 2 houses. We were happy to help protect the land, to protect Sampson Pond, water quality, without having additional houses impacting it. And then just wanted you to be aware that the vast majority of the property being protected this evening is well within, 300 feet of existing wetlands. So quality protection is happening. Natural resources are not being further affected. I am happy to answer any questions that commission members have, but the action tonight that I'm seeking is your approval of the conservation restriction and assent to be the holder of the CR moving forward over our ownership. My next step would be to then get approval of the CR through the select board. That's the next step. So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments?
No, we went out there this morning, as you said, and Mary did a great job showing us everything, and Chief talked about the possible of parking, the parking lot area.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah, as I said, we don't have the funding in hand, but there are grants that help with public access. We constantly propose projects to those funding sources, and we will figure out a way to make it happen. I just can't give you a specific timetable.
do you have an outside, you don't have an outside idea when you're looking to get that done?
No, sir, I don't. But the public is welcome on the property as it stands now.
I'd just like to say thank you. Like, it was a beautiful trail system I didn't even know existed, and for the public, it's right across from what the main area that people load into.
Yeah, the boat ramp, the
right
Carver Public Boat Ramp on Sampson's Pond.
They hold 2 on 58 and Lakeview. They hold CRs, and Wildland Trust holds the middle. So there's actually a trail system that they've put through. It's lovely, and it's a beautiful, place to have right across from Sampson's Pond.
It also bears noting, we're talking tonight specifically about this parcel over by Sampson's Pond, but we also, as part of the general acquisition back in July of 2021, we acquired 18 acres next to your existing Camden Trail property on Indian Street. So that property is open to the public as well. It's already protected, again, with a conservation restriction held by Wildlands Trust. They're a great partner. We love to partner with them as well. That's publicly accessible as well, and connects to your existing trails on Camden Trail.
Right,
So,
right. There's not any parking
There's not
over there right now.
Parking area now, but
yeah, and only a small parking for the Carver properties.
we will. As with the Lakeview parcel, we've reserved the ability to create a parking area over on the Indian Street parcel, which we intend to do in the future.
All right. Did you get a chance to speak to Mary after this morning's?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Because there were a couple of things that that were brought up.
Sure.
Number one was The parking area that's used for the fishermen, for their boats and trailers, there is primarily a pull-through that begins on the property adjacent to you. And I was wondering if the Buzzards Bay Coalition had reached out to that property owner just to say, this is what you're going to do, and allowing the, basically leaving it unchanged so that the methodology of people parking, which is a controlled chaos, I guess at best, would remain. Because your property line goes across part of what is used sort of as an entrance if you're going east on Lakeview Street. And the owner could conceivably put a fence up there.
They could.
Block
and
that.
We've not had contact with the landowner about that particular use. I know it pre-existed our ownership of our side. Obviously, it started on that owner's side as well. But we have not had any conversation with them about the continued use. I'm not aware of any issues.
Okay. It was more out of curiosity than anything else.
So it would be wonderful if it stays like it is. If it does not, then we will figure out a way to safely allow for the circulation and the parking of.
Is there any mechanism in place to open up a line of communication with them in case they decide to do something that you would be notified first and maybe could negotiate or work something out?
We'll see. As I said, we just haven't had any.
Okay.
We haven't had any contact with them that I know of to date.
All right. The second thing that we mentioned to Mary today on the site visit was the South Main Street parking area.
Yep.
She had said it was going to be pretty much a 3 or 4 car, not big.
Not big.
But a pull-in place. That's a very busy stretch of 58 and a very fast stretch of 58. So what we suggested today was that instead of a pull-in 4 spot, that maybe a one-way loop, small loop be put in with 4 spots around the perimeter of the loop, nose to tail. That way there's with an entrance and exit sign on it so that people don't attempt to back out onto 58.
That makes sense. 58 is a busy road.
Yeah, and that's a fast stretch there, right there.
That's good to know, and I appreciate those suggestions. Just to give you an idea, I think she mentioned this, the siting that would work is going to be closer to the southern end, closer to what is the fire station.
Yeah, I think we were pretty much there today. There were some stumps there. We were almost at the property line there when we walked out.
Okay.
So anyway, just, as I know that you don't have a timeline on that yet, but when your engineers start talking about it, that may be something that you want to look into.
That makes good sense, and as you can see, I'm making a couple of notes about that. I appreciate that very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We need 2 decisions for you. One is to.
It could be a single. As far as I'm concerned, it could be a single vote.
Okay.
And the motion I might suggest would be to accept and approve the conservation restriction as presented and authorize signature by everybody thereof. I mean, it's that straightforward.
Okay.
There's a copy of it here.
All right. Will someone make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Yeah.
All right.
This one.
Ashley, you're in the wrong place.
Thank you.
Dave made the motion. Carl made the second. All right. It's been moved and seconded to accept the conservation restriction and on the 2 parcels owned by the Buzzards Bay Coalition. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. We're approved 5-0.
If you don't mind, Mr. Chair, I have a signature page that I could hand up for you to sign.
We're signing it right now. Oh.
So, well, not that it's no different in its wording, but I don't know, this might feel big city.
Sounds like a lawyer.
I have it on bond
We're happy.
paper to present to DCS in a I don't know.
Should I still sign this?
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Okay. Yes.
if you, okay, great. Okay,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I'm just handing it off.
Okay.
Thank you. And then, Neil, what I can do is I'm happy, I can notarize that.
Great.
And I will scan it and email it to you tomorrow.
And so you still need select board?
I need to get on the select board agenda, which will be my second call in the morning tomorrow. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds good.
we'll present it to them, and then it goes back to Energy and Environmental Affairs. They make sure everything's in order, and then the secretary signs it. And at that point, I will then head to the registry and get it recorded. And we will be preparing a baseline documentation report, which is essentially a current conditions report for the status of the property at the time the conservation restriction gets recorded. And I'll share that with Emil. It is going to need a signature from the chair or the agent at the chair's authority, but it's just part of the process, but that's coming.
One other quick thing, Mary mentioned right at the steepest part of the hill, leaving the parking lot, going up to the trail, that she was thinking that they was thinking about putting in some wooden stairs.
Oh, okay.
So I just
all of those things, those types of measures, we encourage, and if need be, obviously we would come in front of you in your regulatory capacity for that. But anything that we can do to make the property more inviting for the public to use it.
In this case, I think it's probably a safety issue.
Yeah, safety, of course,
liability issue.
It's like erosion and
yeah, it's a little steep. You get up and you get quite a view. So, yes, sir.
some nice steps.
Yeah.
Steps. I mean, like
That's
walking
right.
steps.
That's right. Yes, understood.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad we're starting to move on this.
Appreciate that. I will keep Emil updated on our progress.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. All right, the next item we're going to push to the end of the meeting. So we're going to go right to the third discussion point, the extension request for SE 126-622, 62 West Street, the ORAD. Emil, you want to just...
Sure. I'm not sure if there is anyone here for that. For Ed Pesci Engineering had submitted a extension request. It's basically for an order of resource area delineation for 62 West Street, Carver, Massachusetts, DEP file number SE 126-622. We were out at the site today to basically just walk the wetland line. You know, it's a largely upland site, but it's over 10 acres of land out there. So we have a plan here if anyone would like to take a look at it. And I'll leave it to you guys.
Okay.
Yep.
Carl and Dave and Ann and I and Emil were out there today. I had been there before with the original order, and it's the same as it was. Nothing's changed. Actually, it was cleaned up a little bit out and back where there seemed to be some people squatting, living in the back. We asked them to clean that up 2 or 3 years ago, and they seem to have done that. So that was fine. So I'll accept a motion to grant the extension.
It's for a 2-year extension. 2-year extension.
2-year extension. And what would the new expiration date be?
So this was issued on May 19th, 2021. So that goes to May 19th, 2024. So it would be May 19th, 2026.
All right. So I'll accept a motion to grant the extension till May 19th, 2026 for 126-622.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Dave and Carl. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none? Okay. That's done. All right, next up, discussion of the superseding order of conditions, SE 126-672 from the DEP at 104 Tremont Street.
Yes, so this was sent to us, a copy of the superseding order of conditions from the Department of Environmental Protection, Massachusetts Southeast Regional Office. It was issued on April 19th, 2024, so last Friday. This is a superseding order of conditions approving the construction of 22.6 acres of cranberry bogs. That's 5 total cranberry bogs. And an associated 2.9 acre tailwater recovery pond, clearing, grading, excavation of approximately 7.1 acres south of the existing cranberry bogs and reservoir, subject to certain conditions deemed necessary by the department to protect the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act. So this was issued again last Friday by Masoon Rita, Chief Wetlands and Waterways Program, and this was issued to 80 Makepeace Cranberry Company, LLC.
No, that wouldn't be right. That's
EJ Pond.
Yeah, this order says 80 Makepeace Company, LLC, 158 T-Hornet Road, Wareham. That is the applicant, according to the...
So 104 is Ponte.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but that's who they've issued this permit to. Again, it says, I have a copy here, but it's been issued to 80 Makepeace Cranberry Company, LLC.
To 104 Tremont? I know it probably just
no,
says
probably
like,
to their headquarters in Wareham, to hone it.
So it says project location is 46 Federal Road.
No, that's a different,
that's a different.
that's completely different.
Okay. Oh, okay. Maybe I have the wrong one here. Do you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can tell me. I don't see anything that's
Okay, this is
telling
a different one.
that's the one that.
Sorry, everyone. I
okay.
must be
Right
reading
here,
one
it says Ponte.
that was sent to me
Ponte.
today. But this one is issued April 12th, 2024.
That sounds right.
So backtracking, this is a superseding orders of conditions issued by the Department of Environmental Protection Southeast Regional Office for the proposed project for construction of 5 cranberry bogs on 17.8 acres of land. Property contains large land in agricultural use, but an area where the work is proposed is not currently in agricultural use. Again, so this project was before the commission. It was for 104 Tremont Street.
Okay, so that's the correct one.
EJ Pontiff Cranberries Inc., 104 Tremont Street. And this one was approved by the commission in last fall, I believe. And it was appealed by Save the Pie Barrens Inc. And so this is the department coming back and now saying that they've approved this project subject to certain conditions under, for the interests of the Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay.
So that's kind of the update that I have for you at this point. There is an appeal period for this superseding order. I'm not sure when that, passes. However, the work that they're doing out there, it seems to be ongoing. I was out on the site on Thursday, the 11th of April. I was there to look at the solar project, which is a kind of across the cranberry bog from this site. There was a lot of machinery moving back and forth on the hillside across the way. To be honest, it doesn't look great over there. It's a very forested area that's been really disrupted by heavy machinery. And it's unfortunate that they kept going, while they're under appeal. The property is located directly next to the state forest, Miles Standish State Forest. So there's a lot of people who are, walking through there, seeing what's going on. It's a highly visible project. Again, all the work.
This was for the 5 cranberry bogs. This wasn't for the solar.
Yes.
Correct.
That's right.
The solar's already been taken care of, so they have every right to.
Yes.
Proceed with
the property, that they're working on is upland area. It's not wetlands.
Right.
It's not in buffer zone. I spoke to the State Department about the work that's going on there. They had no issue. They weren't planning to go back and do any more further site visits or investigation. And they will be now the issuing authority for this project. They'll issue the COC at the time that it's completed. So,
Okay.
Yep.
So this was informational only. We don't need to take any action.
No.
I would like to make a comment about it, though. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I have hiked the area, and I received a lot of calls from people hiking the Mile Standish. So the property is all forested up on a very large hill. And I think the earth removal permit was issued on February 23rd, and there's supposed to be a 60-day wait period for any abutters to appeal that before Mr. Ponta takes any action. And what's got people upset is he's out there with 2 excavators deforesting a mature forest that's going right up to Mile Standish during the 60-day wait period where no action should be taken, which is an earth removal committee issue, but it's still an issue. You know, that is concerning. So it's a very public thing. It actually abuts, if people are familiar with the forest, is Shoestring Road. And it's going to be deforestation of probably 20 acres of, and then they're going to remove the loam and then remove 1.5 million cubic yards of sand over 5 years. So that troubles me.
Right. Well,
And it troubles citizens as well, so.
all right. But as you said, that where that is occurring is not in our jurisdiction. So
No, I guess for me, from an educational
it's an
standpoint,
earth
this is
removal.
superseding order of conditions, which, as I understand it, and I welcome anyone to correct me, we had jurisdiction over that, but now that the state has come in with that order, for example, for the certificate of completion, it won't be us anymore. It will be the state, is that correct?
That's not correct.
That's what I was told.
Is that correct?
Yes, so the DP will issue the COC. for
They
this
issue the
project.
COC.
Yes, because they are issuing the superseding order.
Oh, okay, all right.
The state takes responsibility for this permit at
They
this
trumped
point.
us.
And a lot of the project is in, completely outside of buffer zone. There is some parts of the project that are within 100-foot buffer zone. Very little was within 65 feet. However, there was, it's 17 acres of land, so it's a significant amount of clearing of forest. It's basically been cleared completely down to dirt at this point.
The whole thing has been?
Not the whole thing, but the areas 1 and 2 for the first 2 cranberry bogs that they're constructing there. So, and in the nature of constructing a cranberry bog from an upland forest area, it requires all of that, removal of vegetation, grading of the area. It has to be significantly lowered in elevation. So what they're doing is all consistent with the project that they have at hand. I just think it's unfortunate that they, just kept moving ahead with, without waiting for the state to issue them, their full permit. However, the state had no interest in enforcing anything outside of their buffer, outside of their jurisdiction. So again, they had no interest in proceeding with any kind of enforcement.
And there was only a small area that was affected.
This is quite a large area.
No, but I mean, that was in our jurisdiction.
Yes.
It was like 5 feet
There were
or
2
something.
small areas that we had NOIs for.
Right. Right. There was a little bit of a wetlands sort of around the corner, and then there was the
It was almost all
the
buffer zone to Cranberry Bog, a little bit of buffer zone to BBW, and then
right.
there have been some riverfront area as well.
Yeah, there is a river that goes through there.
Okay. I just remember they had the reservoir that they filled every year and then drained it at harvest time, plus the little wetland area that may have been the river. All right. Well,
Yeah, so I guess, while we're here, I might as well mention that we also received another one for 46 Federal Road. As I mentioned, another project.
all right. That will go on our agenda for the
We can put that on the
22nd.
agenda for the next one, yeah.
Is that, you said 46 Federal?
Yes, 80 Makepeace.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. All right. Next up. We need to vote on retaining Country Mile Landscaping to maintain the 38 Lakeview Street. He is the gentleman that we hired last year to keep the place spruced up after it kind of went crazy. I think that we can all agree he did a good job.
Yep.
and he's reached out to us about taking care of the property again this year. We have funding from our maintenance fund, our conservation maintenance fund, which is filled by the fees that we get on NOIs that we issue, on things that come before us. So I will entertain a motion to retain.
Is that the house we were looking at that you showed me?
Yes, it's right next to the COA.
Right next to the other one, okay.
It's next to
Is
the-
that 44?
44 Lakeview.
Or is this
This says
38?
It says
Yeah, it's
38.
38 on the,
Oh, all right.
Should be 44.
It should be 44. All right.
We don't want to do landscaping for somebody else?
That's the place.
That's the one that we visited for the trees. And that'll be on our next one. That'll be on the 22nd. All right, so I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
second.
Ann? Curtis? All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. That's approved. Just for information, the Wade Street property has been recorded at the Registry of Deeds. That's the 8.2 or 3 acre parcel at the end of Wade Street, across the street from the airport. The property is now owned by the Conservation Commission. We are responsible for the payment of registry fees. I don't know, Emil, if you've received them yet from...
I have not,
All right,
no.
you're going to be receiving them from Kathleen O'Donnell, who is the attorney for the Redevelopment Authority. She
Got it.
did all the registry. So when you receive that, you can bring it back, bring it here to our meeting, and
Sure.
we'll vote to
Sign off.
fund it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we've already talked about that. So that's good news. It took a long, long time to get that property, but now we have it. I think this probably started 3 years ago, maybe even 4. It's a nice piece of property, and it's now protected forever, which is great.
That's awesome. And I know neighbors there that are kind of interested in helping maintain it.
They've
Volunteer.
been doing that.
They've been doing
Yeah,
it probably
kind of
anyway.
on their own, yeah.
On their own, they just really like it, so.
Yeah, it's a kind of a hidden gem, and they sort of, almost feel an ownership of it. Okay, lastly, tree removal request, 78 North Main Street.
Wouldn't mind just signing in there.
Do you need a pen? Here.
Eric Perkins, owner of 78 North Main Street.
All right, we were, again, we went out and visited this site today. It is an area behind Crossroads Collision on North Main Street, next to, near Corvette. Mike, you next door now?
Mike's Corvette, yep.
Yeah. And it abuts in the rear up to the ever-expanding lake that was created when 58 was put in, the new 58 was put in, and a culvert was put underneath it, right between Cumberland Farms and Crossroads. So the water was very high. There were a lot of dead trees in the water. Some had fallen towards the building, towards a propane tank.
Yep.
So there was the pictures show. So would you still want to briefly describe what it is you would like to do?
I did bring my tree guy that's gonna do
Yeah.
most of the work, Mitch. So, I mean, basically, we're just trying to get all the dangerous trees that are around the property from landing on the building, creating more problem for myself. There's a propane tank there, back there, my water pumps back there for the well, and, just general safety. I mean, the vines are climbing up my building, and I'd like to remove all these things, do at least the invasive way I possibly can. I prefer not to use chemicals on some of the vines, I'd like to pull those out of the ground and then get rid of them, so they don't grow back. And then just kind of clean the area up a little bit so that it's, you know, presentable. Not like people can see it, but I can see it. It bothers me.
Well, it could be a maintenance issue for your building as well.
Yeah, well, there's already maintenance issues. I mean, the trees and the vines are just climbing up in it, and it's just ruining all the T111 on the outsides of the building. And, you know, to prevent further problems, I mean, I'd like to be able to address this stuff now. I've owned the building for 6 years now, and I haven't done anything. And it's just gotten worse. And I'm at the point now where, you know, I'd like to be able to spruce it up.
Okay. Questions for either the applicant or Mr. Mitko, the tree guy?
What's your process going to be as far as, what are you going to have back there for equipment? And how you're going to go about removing what he wants to remove?
Well, it's going to be all physical labor other than having a mini skid steer to assist. I wouldn't, we'd like to prune and remove trees that are engulfing the building, and I more than likely wouldn't remove any stumps from existing trees without permission. I don't know that we've really talked about the stumps, but
No,
you know, a lot of trees that are engulfing that building, all along the backside, trees that are about to fall on the building, uprooted trees that are halfway fallen over, as well as trees that have fallen over. And the water comes right up to about 8 or 10 feet from the back of that building. So I don't think we can go too far with the removal. All we can do is remove trees that may be within 10 feet of the building without being in the water. I don't know if that water is controlled or how it drains, but I think it would be a big help to Eric's building if we were able to remove some of the vegetation and the trees from the building in a good 10 feet, you know, buffer zone anyway.
Like I showed you guys today, that water is literally 10 feet further to the property. I don't know if it's a culvert somewhere that's not draining properly, and that's why, because over the past 3 years, this thing just keeps getting higher and higher. I mean, soon I'll need snorkel gear.
It was like high tide.
You know, I'll have a little swimming pool right beside the body
It's
shop.
almost touching your building. I mean, it's getting so close to your building.
It really is. I mean, I don't, like I said, you guys talked about it drains somewhere else. I don't know if that somewhere else is clogged, and that's why it's all backing up. And
I believe there's a culvert under 58 that heads towards Plymouth Street and then eventually into Muddy Brook.
Yeah.
But I don't know when the last time that was cleaned out.
I don't either. But like I said, that's over the past 3 years. It's, you know, that water was, when I first bought the building, that water was, you know, 10 feet away. And it slowly got, not, there was a lot of rain this year, but that's still, I mean, that, if there's a culvert somewhere and it's going under 50, that's,
Yeah,
you have to
it's
have a water
noticeable.
level where it stays consistently.
It's
You can see
noticeable.
it. If you drive by there, when it's a dry season, you see the trees. There's all rings around all these trees, and that's just the place for those trees to snap and fall on my building.
Right.
You mentioned removing those small buildings out behind the,
Yeah, I'm gonna crush those up.
okay. What's in those? Is there anything, any chemicals, any oils
No,
or
there's
anything?
nothing in them.
Yeah,
There's-
no
it's-
hazardous materials?
If you like a bumper cover, I can give you a bumper cover that's in there.
No, I'm all set with that.
But there's really nothing in there.
I just want to make sure there's nothing
We
that's
just
gonna...
store parts in there right now. It's all parts that, you know, are damaged and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some metal parts and doors that are actually potentially be used later in like, the process.
Yeah.
I'd like to put a smaller new unit back there, you know, right in one of those freight containers. They're waterproof, they're nice, and just get rid of those two horrible things and crush those and just get rid of them. But there's nothing in there except the, you know,
Wildlife. You have
yeah,
nice little
I have a
condos
nice
for
raccoon that
wildlife.
lives there. He's not friendly at all. So, I mean, that's what I want to do.
You also mentioned having some wood chips put back there.
Yes, but I'd like to take the wood chips and lay those over the top of the ground, just, you know, to make it look decent. You know, I don't plan on putting anything back there,
All right.
except for that one container.
Generally, when we approve tree removal requests, we do require that the stumps be left in so
That's
that
fine.
the root system holds the ground.
Yep.
We sometimes, more times than not, we request that the applicant plant a couple of you know, trees that, or not trees, shrubs that are native that also have a good root system, like blueberry. You know, right along the edge, not many, but just something to help control the erosion. It's very flat going back there. It's
Oh,
not
yeah.
it's not a steep drop off at
No,
all,
no,
which
it
is why
drops
they're
about 6 inches and then that kind of planes itself off.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's something we'd like you to do as well. So just leave the stumps, plant a couple of blueberry bushes. I guess I would wait probably till midsummer when the water's down. Well, no, you probably should do it at the high water mark. So
Yeah, and then I'll at least have a baseline of where it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking sometime towards, because I'm gone for most of May, sometimes towards the end of May, start the project and go from there.
okay, all right.
Then use minimal amount of machinery.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
No heavy equipment.
You just minimize the
No.
skid steer stuff.
I don't have any heavy equipment, everything is compact for backyards and tight places, and I only need about 2 days on the property to achieve
Wow.
whatever
Okay.
it wants to do. so.
Good.
And no herbicide.
No, we wouldn't be spraying anything, just removing trees and vines and chipping them, and that's about it.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions?
Nope.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to allow for the tree removal as we discussed.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Carl and Dave. It's been moved and seconded to approve the tree removal request at 78 North Main Street with the retention of the stumps and the planting of some blueberry bushes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none? We're good to go. Thank you both.
Did you
Thank
put
you.
your email address on there? Because what I'll do is I'll send you an email, and I'll just give you some written, approval, along with those conditions of just replacing the blueberries or some kind of native shrubbery, as well as leaving the stumps in the ground. I mean, your tree person is already here, so you've heard what they've said, but that's just for, you guys to have written approval to go
Sure,
ahead with
thank
that.
you.
Would that work? Awesome.
Thanks
Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
in last
Thank you.
minute.
Thank you for coming
Yeah,
in.
no problem.
Thanks,
Thank you
Matt.
very much. Good night.
All right, continued public hearings, 276 Meadow Street. They've asked for another continuance until our next meeting on May 22nd. So that leaves us with South Main Street, Lakeview Street. This is a continued public hearing, so I do not have to read this all again. Gentlemen,
Good evening.
good evening.
Rick Grady from Grady Consulting, along with the applicant Bob Goslin from K&G Development. Bob recently had surgery on his vocal cords, so he's unable to speak tonight. So I'll be presenting on his behalf. It's my understanding at the last meeting that the commission had asked for additional documentation to back up the finding of the cranberry bog being an upland cranberry bog as opposed to a wetland cranberry bog. We did deliver to the commission, to Emil, a memo-type document here with a number of exhibits that I'll be glad to go over for you here. We started with a 1903 Town of Carver, Plymouth County atlas of Plymouth County. On the second and third pages of this document, basically the first page shows the map in its full extent, and then we zoomed in to the actual locus of the property. And what we observed in this document was that they showed no wetlands in the vicinity of this proposed lot. However, they are showing wetlands to the east, where we also agree there is wetlands associated with a perennial stream. The next document that we submitted was a soil survey from 1912 of Plymouth County. Again, we gave the overview of the map and a zoomed-in version of it, which shows the soil mapped at that time as CC, which they considered to be a coarse sandy loam at that point, 112 years ago or so. 1916 USGS Middleborough Quadrangle map, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Again, this is an overview showing the map in its full extent, as well as a zoomed-in view of the location of the property and the existing cranberry bogs. Again, they're not showing any wetlands in the vicinity of this existing cranberry bog. However, they are showing other wetlands in the vicinity, most notably adjacent to the east here again. where we agree there is wetlands. 1918 USGS map, tactical map by the Corps of Engineers on page 8 and 9. Very similarly, they're not showing any wetlands in the vicinity of this cranberry bog. However, they are showing wetlands off to the east again, where there's other cranberry bogs and the perennial stream. Then we have the most recent soil map, Plymouth County soil map from 2010, which comes up with a nice aerial view here of the vicinity, clearly shows the cranberry bog in its current configuration. It's mapped as a Plymouth Carver sand soil in the area. There are, again, other adjacent areas, most notably to the east where the perennial stream and other cranberry bogs are located, which are mapped at a 60A, which is a cranberry bog or wetland soil. We did go out to the property with an excavator, and we excavated a test hole adjacent to the existing cranberry bog, basically in the gravel road that runs between the proposed house and the cranberry bog. We excavated to a depth of, sorry, I just double check this, a depth of 10 feet. It was clean sand all the way down from the surface down to 10 feet. There was no evidence of hydric soils. So what this test hole did was it confirmed the soil map issued by Plymouth County from 2010. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions the Commission has. We are hopeful that he can have the cease and desist removed and proceed with the application before the Commission and the construction of the home.
Okay.
I saw it online.
We have aerial photographs from 2008 and 2010 that showed, before the current configuration, the 3 separate cranberry bogs. That also appear in an aerial photo from 1961. And the feeling is that if these were upland bogs in 1960, why would they make them such an odd shape? And in these photos, there does not seem to be any method of getting water to them. What we had asked at the last meeting was that the applicant go online and find these maps and overlay the old cranberry bogs on top of the new and do some test bores in the areas where the old bogs were. And I wonder if that had been done. I can share this photo with you if you'd like.
Sure, that'd be great. So the areas that you were hoping to get test holes or test borings were within the cranberry bogs themselves?
Yes.
I don't know that that would be possible or practical at that point with the cranberry bog operators or owners.
Okay, well, all right, so here you see 3 separate cranberry bogs. Here is the current configuration. The feeling was that these are probably wetland bogs.
That contradicts the soil maps, unfortunately.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Also on the last page,
But a test bore would determine for sure. It just, you know, to us it doesn't really make sense that these bogs, if anyone was building bogs as upland bogs, they wouldn't put them in this configuration. I just,
Correct.
it just doesn't make
Can I see
sense.
that packet? No.
So, you know, and we're probably not too concerned about these 2 because even with the other 2 plans that you have for the 2 additional homes, this is outside of the 100-foot. But this one might be close to this corner. And I'm just wondering if there's some way it can be determined, you can have this if you like, what the soil is like in this area of this current configuration.
Fortunately, the other 2 homes that are proposed are located at least 100 feet from even
I
the
know.
existing configuration of the Cranberry Bog.
Yes,
So
I
fortunately,
understand.
yeah,
And we're not
fortunately,
talking about
sure
that. That hasn't come before us yet. It is this area here. What we're trying to do is determine whether it is in fact an upland bog, which is where this entire situation started with the building permit being issued based on it being indicated as an upland bog. And this doesn't prove that it's a wetland bog, but it certainly raises the question as to why they would have 3 bogs like this. And this is 1960. It's the same 3 bogs, 48 years earlier. So I think that's the answer that we're looking for as a board. Is a portion of this here qualify as a wetland bog?
I'm curious where you would anticipate we would go if that did indeed be presumed to be a wetland bog at that period of time.
Well, I think it's just edification for the board. Is that correct? This is a question that was asked 2 weeks ago to get an answer for, and
So if there's a wetland resource area there, that would be jurisdictional to the State Wetlands Protection Act and not only the Carver Wetlands Bylaw. This filing is under the Carver Wetlands Bylaw because you're claiming that this bog is an upland bog. And so the commission has the opportunity to ask for more information, how you got that designation. And, you know, at the last meeting we kind of discussed, had a wetland scientist gone out, done a wetland delineation of this property, and it doesn't seem like that's happened.
Oh, that did indeed happen. Yes, we submitted with the application the wetland summary form from our wetland scientist. The documents that I submitted to you for tonight's meeting were prepared in conjunction with him as well, John Zimmer from South River Environmental. His delineation report was included with the notice of intent application.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess his testimony, you know, would be helpful in the determination of that. Again, I think it's a permittable project. It's a single-family dwelling. It's outside of largely the 65-foot, and you know, it's within 100 feet of the edge of the bog. However, these you know, projects are you know, sensitive to the Carver Wetlands Bylaw, and whether or not there's a wetland resource area there, that would have to be filed along, you know, to the state as well. So that's kind of just why the commission is, you know, extra interested in how this designation was made.
Yeah, so I just assumed you'd do boreholes and have a wetland scientist really look at that property. You mentioned you might have issues with that, but isn't the owner the same as ADGA?
No, it's not. They sold the property to Mr. Goslin.
When Carver GIS is still showing as ADGA?
Yeah, the GIS they typically update once a year.
Mr.
I
Goslin?
believe it got transferred over the winter, and they typically don't update that until July 1st.
And when the way they zoned it too, though, technically that lot extends into the bog anyway. I mean, they
go into the bog.
They get, I mean, I guess the cranberry operator has the rights to use it. I didn't really understand what happened with that, but the current landowner does own partially into that bog.
Right, but the Cranberry Company has an easement over the bog as well, so we would essentially be.
What we'd like to see, though, is a
a
soil profile going across the entire bog, just to make sure.
We're not talking about an excavator driving out and ripping up the whole bog, but we are talking about someone with an auger going and seeing, you know, what's in the ground in that bog. And I have that wetland summary form from your wetland scientist here, and the comments are: the property has a cranberry bog, associated irrigation pond. Based on review of aerial photography, both the bog and the pond were developed from upland areas and therefore are not subject to protection under the Mass Wetlands Protection Act. Indian Brook, a perennial stream, is located within cranberry bogs. To the southeast, subject to the property, associated 200-foot riverfront area extends west of the subject property. There is also bordering land subject to flooding associated with the stream. However, it is wholly located within the cranberry bog. The stream flows through. So they've done, you know, they've done, they've taken a look at the plants, upland plants. They haven't noted any wetland plants here. However, they haven't done any soil stuff. When I look at a cranberry bog, I just assume that's a wetland. Cranberries are a wetland plant. They have to be grown with hydrology and, so I think the burden of the proof is kind of on you guys to show us how that's being designated here. Again, I think this is a permittable project. However, I think the commission needs to have that information, and the state should have the information as well if there is a wetland.
If I may, I just want to read from our minutes. They haven't been approved yet. We'll approve them later this evening, but our minutes from our April 10th meeting at the end, after talking about this project, said they, meaning the applicant, would like to continue until April 24th, 2024 with verification of the type of bog with soil samples taken and an overlay done of the USGS maps from the early 1960s on the current configuration of the bog. So that's what we asked for 2 weeks ago, and we don't have that. I would love to be able to move forward on this, but what we asked you and what you agreed to provide to us, it has not been done. So again, with this photo that you have of the original from 2008, which corroborates with the 1960 photo, in that northwest corner of that smaller squarish bog that's closest to where the house is being built right now, we would like some soil samples taken to see if that is in fact part of that is a wetland bog. And I don't know what they did in 1908 or whenever it was to, they might have just taken a shovelful and said, okay, this is what it is. But it just doesn't make sense that those three bogs would have that configuration and be man-made upland bogs. It just doesn't make sense. And as a matter of fact, the map that was provided, one of the maps that was provided to us today by the Buzzards Bay Coalition in our very first discussion shows the same bogs. The same as DEP Core Wetland Resources. It shows the three bogs on the corner of where the house is. So,
And also the DEP on their website has them mapped as wetlands. If you, in the last page we gave you, there's three, they have them mapped on their GIS site as being wetlands. So, and also associated with that too is across the street 58. I know it wasn't ever brought up. There's also wetlands across the street that is right on the edge of 58, and 100-foot protection area would extend into your property also.
Lot 3, right?
Yeah, it wasn't taken into account at all during this. So I don't know. I mean, that's a little bit a side issue, but
well, at this point we're only talking about the one lot.
A wetland scientist should go back to this site. I mean, this right here isn't a wetland delineation. This is it's got a sketch, and it has no soils information. It has, very minimal information on here. So a wetlands delineation has a whole, form where it has, soils, it has plants. They have certain faculty indicator plants, and all of that's listed in a very clear written up document. This is not a state wetlands delineation form.
That's not a state form. However, I respectfully disagree that it was a wetland delineation done by a professional wetland scientist. It may not be on the paperwork that you want to see.
There's no flags.
It may not be on the paperwork you want to see, but I respectfully disagree.
So they
he
haven't
is a
located
professional
any-
wetland scientist, and he did delineate the wetlands.
He says, based on a review of aerial photography,
Photos.
they've designated that this area is not subject to protection under the Act. He hasn't labeled and located any flags. That's, each flag would have, the localized soil and the vegetation and the hydrology. Those are the three factors for a wetlands delineation. And so each flag would have associated backing up proof based on the hydrology and the soils and the vegetation. And that's typically the process.
I understand the state form. I'm familiar with it. This is a form that he uses on a regular basis, and it is acceptable to most commissions. I know Mr. Goslin's biggest concern here is that he did receive a building permit signed off by the previous conservation agent.
Erroneously, but granted, yes, he has one.
Okay, yep, he has a building permit signed off by the previous conservation agent.
Yep.
This has created a tremendous hardship for him in that he did begin construction based on that building permit issuance. So what we really want to do is find the most expeditious manner for him to proceed, because it is costing him money to have it sitting there.
I understand that.
But he was told right when he broke ground that he was proceeding at his own risk.
I disagree, and Mr. Goslin disagrees. He actually prepared a letter that he'd like me to read into the record, and apparently the building inspector was present and confirmed that that was never stated.
Well, it was certainly stated by our chairperson 4 weeks ago as a public record.
I understand it was stated during the last hearing for this application.
I think 2 hearings ago.
All right.
Yeah.
You may read that letter.
Okay. K&G Development Corporation, Bob Goslin, builder, dated April 24th, 2024, to the Conservation Commission regarding Lot 1, 104 South Main Street. Dear Commission members, sorry I can't speak due to recent surgery on my vocal cords. I felt it was necessary to clarify a couple of things. On or around March 1st, 2024, I received my building permit for 104 South Main Street from the Carver Building Department with all the required department sign-offs. As I was picking up my permit, the Conservation Chairman, Mr. Moore, was at the window questioning work being done at the site. He said he was going to look into it. The next morning, I got a voicemail from the Conservation agent at the time, Gary Flaherty. I went to his office instead of calling him back. He explained to me that Mr. Moore wanted me to file because the issue was with the bylaw addressing work within a certain distance of bogs, wetland, or upland. He said they were not going to put a stop work order on me as long as I filed a notice of intent. Not once were the words "at your own risk" mentioned. After meeting with Grady Consulting, I went back to the office to see if we could file a request for determination. At this time, he called the chairman as I stood there with phone on speaker and asked the question. The chairman said he wanted me to file an NOI because he didn't want to set a precedent of people working in proximity to bogs. Again, nothing was ever mentioned about working at my own risk. Grady Consulting filed right away. I also installed a silt sock along the edge of the bog to be proactive without being asked. If at any time I was told if I was to continue working it would be at my own risk, I would have ceased work immediately, as I was just starting to dig the hole. I had no reason to be concerned based on my conversations. I've been doing this long enough to know what that might mean. So I was very surprised at the action the Commission took at the last meeting. We have done everything the Commission have asked in a timely manner, and I am hopeful with the additional information provided, the Commission will lift the stop work order tonight. Sincerely, Bob Goslin. And glad to submit the letter as well.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So what I'm struggling with here is that if we hold those old aerial photos of what is being depicted on there, that particular corner is going to land fairly close to the configuration of the bog as it currently exists.
Thanks.
Correct.
I have heard tonight that the Commission may feel that it would be a permittable project even if those configurations were deemed to be wetlands instead of uplands. Would it expedite things if we presumed or agreed to call the bog in its current configuration a wetland bog? Is that something the Commission would find more amenable to move forward both on this application and on the other 2 lots next door, which fortunately the foundations will be more than 100 feet from the bog anyways? So I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to waste a lot of time fighting over whether it's an upland bog or a wetland bog if we're going to get to the same ending point anyways.
I understand that. Again, what I want to go back to, at our meeting 2 weeks ago, you agreed to make soil samples and present them on an overlaid map. That wasn't done today. Had that been done, we probably could have finished this off tonight. We asked you for something, you said you would provide it, you did not. We're here 2 weeks later, so.
We did excavate a test hole as adjacent to the bog as we could get without disturbing the bog, so.
We're not asking for, as the conservation agent said, we're not asking for an excavation, we're asking for a core sample.
Any particular depth that you're looking for?
What, probably 6 feet? Is that about what they go to?
3 to 6 feet.
3 to 6 feet.
Nothing crazy. But I think what you're asking is if we were to designate this area as a wetland, you know, if you guys wanted to make that the request, you're going to have to file this application with the state of Massachusetts Department of Wetlands Protection, as well as the Carver Wetlands Bylaw. So you're going to have to come back to us again. Either way, you know, whether you're willing to just say this bog is a wetland, you know, it's functioning as a wetland, but the state only takes protection over a bog that is, you know, naturally having that hydrology without, you know, being a man-made area that's being pumped. You know, I think that's a little bit unfortunate that they make that distinction. It makes it pretty difficult for this commission, as it's a lot of cranberry bogs in the town. So it's important for us to make that, you know, it very clear when you're going to make that claim that it's an upland bog.
Okay, so you're looking for a hand auger 3 to 6 feet deep.
Yep.
I'll assume that would be 100 feet from the back of the house location?
Yes. In approximately the northwest corner of that, where that 1960 bog is located.
And what you're looking to see from those auger holes is whether or not this hydric soil within those augered samples.
Determine whether it's wetlands or uplands, because that would determine what other bylaws would come into play.
The vegetation and the hydrology are pretty clear, so it's really just the soils that are a mystery at this point.
It'd be better just have to do 2 samples while he's there. I mean, he's already there with the auger, just to double check, because one sample's not gonna, it's not scientifically really
right
thing to do. We should do 2.
Yeah, and we'd like an indication on that, and on that photo that shows the original 3 bogs, on that one bog where the auger sample was taken, just so we know where the 100-foot is.
Okay. All right, I appreciate the clarification.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll need to continue this.
Do we want to address the fact that they're still in violation of the bylaw of 100 feet from a cranberry bog?
Separate from wetland
I mean, we're actually dealing with 2 separate issues here.
I think it would be
Or do you want to wait for after you get the citizen?
counterproductive to,
Okay,
until we know for sure.
that's fine. If we're going to
Because
continue anyway.
if they do the augers and they don't find that it's a wetland bog, then that part of the discussion goes away. And then we deal with just,
Just the violation.
the variance
Yeah.
of the 100-foot,
Okay.
where the house is. Our local bylaw. It's no longer state
It's no longer a state
jurisdiction.
issue.
It's ours.
It's ours.
So I would hold off on that until we get an answer for sure, one way or the other. All right?
Yep.
So we need to continue this. You're not going to be happy. Our next meeting is on the 22nd of May, because we do not have a quorum any other evenings. This is a public hearing. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Would you come up, please,
Yes.
Rod, and have a seat?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Rod Palmer, Building Commissioner for the town of Carver. And might I offer a suggestion? The builder has a foundation in the earth. He has, I think, a deck framed, and he has a good amount of lumber and materials that have a shelf life when they're exposed to the weather. Would it make sense to perhaps amend the cease and desist or the stop work order to allow him to continue building? to allow him to continue assembling the house and perhaps not augment or make any modifications to the site. If we have a concrete foundation and we're simply building up with building components, we're not disturbing the earth any further. And if we were to amend it to address that, is that something that perhaps would be worth considering? And I say that only because there's $50,000. And I don't know Mr. Goslin. I've never met him before, having worked here. But there's $50,000 worth of lumber sitting there. And it would be a shame for it to be damaged, being exposed to the weather. Again, it has a shelf life. So it's important when you frame a house to frame it, roof it, side it, and protect all that wood that's been kiln dried. So it's a shame that it sit there and be damaged by the weather. So I'm just throwing that out there as an option, perhaps, that you could allow him to continue framing it and not disturb the site any further. Thank you.
If it's understood that he's doing so at his own risk.
Well, I think that would be, I think he'd be overjoyed to be able to do something like that. I'm sure he would accept that.
All right. Because there,
I believe,
I mean,
I don't want to speak for him, but.
One way or another, there is still, and I understand that he has a building permit.
Yeah.
There is still the situation where one of the bylaws, one of the Carver bylaws, not the state bylaws, it needs a variance that we still have to vote on. So
No, I understand that.
what is the flavor of the board to? I mean, I understand what they're saying.
I totally get it. I'm in construction myself, and I know exactly where you're coming from. But my opinion is I think the cease and desist should stay in place until we get this hashed out, because he could be throwing more money away. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I agree.
I agree.
I'm not heartless. You know, I understand where you're coming from. I know what you're saying.
Maybe you can cover it with something? Yeah, tarp it up.
It's,
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to offer that suggestion to the committee.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'll accept a motion to continue this hearing on South Main Street till Wednesday, May 22nd.
So moved.
so move.
Second.
Second?
Whatever. I'll flip you for it.
All right.
You can do the so moved. I'll do the
Okay.
second.
All right, Carl, Dave. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's approve the minutes from the last meeting, then we'll go back to our second discussion point.
I have taken some amendments from the minutes, so.
Okay.
Mostly spelling errors.
All right.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Second?
You don't need me to,
Nope, you're good.
okay. I
you.
gave one of those on second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain. I wasn't here.
Oh, correct. Okay, 401 on that. Okay. Going back to our discussion points. This Zero Lakeview issue has brought up some gray areas in our bylaws, or some areas
Need to be clarified anyway, right?
that need to be clarified or made stronger, or that would eliminate the availability of someone to make a summary judgment that it was a wetland or an upland bog without coming in front of us. But and that's something that can only be done by changing our bylaw, and that can't happen until next year. The date for adding articles, even though town meeting was pushed back, the date is gone. So what I'd like each of you to do is to just, think about all the different facets of this Zero Lakeview, and see where we can strengthen our bylaws so that we don't get into this position again. I mean, obviously, there were mistakes made on both sides. The building permit should never have been signed before this plan came to us. Unfortunately, it was, and that is something that, it happened. It was a mistake, but it happened, and he's got a piece of paper that has the signature of the conservation agent on it, telling him, go ahead and build. So I would like all of your ideas of what we can do, and we don't need it by the next meeting because we have a year before we can put it in there, but just start thinking about, where our bylaws let us down and what we can do to make sure this type of a situation doesn't happen again. This is a tough situation, but I think that if we come up with the right language for our bylaws, that we can avoid this type of a situation happening again. And it could be. I think Carl, at our last meeting, you mentioned an immediate cease and desist, if some kind of
I agree. I think as soon as he found out that he was in violation,
so that can be a bylaw.
Yeah,
that can be a bylaw, something like that. But there are probably more areas throughout all of our bylaws that can be strengthened to make sure this type of situation doesn't happen again.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman, for all of you and also for you. So one thing that I learned recently talking to a wetland scientist and also reading is that just because something is an upland bog, say in 1970, it could be a wetland bog in 1990 because it depends how deep they go and how the hydrology changes. So I guess maybe this is related. So just because something might have been called or even tested with boreholes as an upland bog at one point, it doesn't always remain that way. I'm interested in your feedback on that.
Yeah, so any wetland delineation, when it comes before us on a site plan or as an ORAD, that's typically valid for a period of 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years. That's when, there's subject to, wetlands are subject to change. So after 3 to 5 years, it's always good to have that line done again by a professional wetland scientist based on the 3, factors of wetlands, which are hydrology, wetland soils, and wetland indicator plants. And so anytime that a new project is coming forward, a current wetland delineation should be done. If there's one on file within the last 3 to 5 years, then that's something that can be, relatively accurate. However, when you're asking for, work within 100-foot buffer zone to cranberry bog in this town, I think people should be doing a wetlands delineation and submitting those forms with backup. I think, rather than drawing a sketch of a bog and saying here's the bog and here's the stream and here's where the upland is, I think someone should go out there and put flag and say I placed this flag based on this.
It should be treated the same way as it would for
the state filing.
A state filing. Yeah.
I agree.
And that maybe is, again, some of the language we put in that 100-foot.
Right.
So I'd like you all to go and think about how we can make this stronger, but also to avoid these I mean, I've never had this. I've been on this commission for 8 or 9 years now. I've never had this happen before, where a building permit has been granted erroneously. So put on your thinking caps, and we'll start putting something together for town meeting next year.
Okay.
Do you think it's the case that this is happening because there's less and less buildable?
It's going to come up more often.
More often.
It's going to come up more often.
So it's wise that we
Yes.
get ahead of it.
And it's going to become even, well, the planning board is putting an article on this year's town warrant to increase lot size from 1.5 acres to 2 acres. which means that in order to carve out lots, people are going to be using more of the wetlands to get to that 2-acre spot,
2 acres, yeah.
which is going to put more of wetlands into the hands of private ownership.
Right.
And out of our eyes,
Right.
and our, you know, unless we find out for some reason or another, we won't know what's going on back there. And the planning board decided last night they were going to keep it on the town warrant. There was a discussion last night of maybe pulling it off, but they decided to keep it on. So yes, as dry land gets less and less within Carver, you're going to see larger and larger lots that include wetlands.
Thank you.
And that's going to be much harder to protect and enforce and be aware of if it's privately owned. So,
Thank you.
anybody have anything else?
I do not.
Anybody? Motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're out. Thank you, Area 58.
Thank you.